just a little part of my day-to-day to share with you. Um, Happy morning after a full moon in Scorpio. Uh, Scorpio placements are often my happy place, my power place, which does sometimes mean I have to do my own thing. And I think the world is suffering a deep cognitive dissonance. And I do think it feels like a void of facing that or not, furthering the cognitive dissonance since the lunar solar eclipse. And so we're kind of expanding in that shadow period around that as well with the same concept. So, sometimes I just gotta get real center because it makes that cognitive dissonance wreak less havoc on my body and my mind, truly. Because I do tap into that, don't I? But so today is a new day. I am rocking in the afterglow of it. And I think we're gonna need that. Full moon in Scorpio, deep lover one. And opposed to the sun in Taurus, in Taurus season, which is, I feel like maybe the exhaustion of planning your own party, or just general sort of feeling pulled away from your aftercare or pulled away from your from the things that ultimately ground you. Vacations can be that, as fun as they are. It is a different schedule, and so you require more rest. So that kind of exhaustion doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing. There we go. I can kind of see what's going on now. Let's see what else. The moon is also squaring Pluto in Aquarius, which is interesting because this also adds to this cognitive dissonance thing a lot. I definitely think that leads to hidden depths of meaning after challenging ideals or sort of shallow preconceptions, especially stepping out of Capricorn. There's some things that we are maybe struggling with losing the ideals of or what they represent. Challenging that loss of Aquarius and Capricorn sort of ideas. I think that also lends itself to the necessary understanding of the superimposition of transactionality over connection. I hear often, and I have also been one to have believed, that everything is transactional, or that relationships are always transactional, or what have you. Connection is always transactional. But I do think I'm seeing a lot of people struggle with the idea of letting that go, or what anything could possibly be if it wasn't that. But this is very much where we see Pluto separate from Capricorn in deeper ways, and continually so. I think that is an industrialization of life and love rather than a stewardship or storytelling of connection, or as a means of connection, which I think are much more integral to civilization, despite what a lot of literature from both white and brown people says. But I think that is one of those things that's like, but we've always been raised to believe that industrialization and productivity was the most important part of civilization. However, there are still cultures with their language and their people and their place and their stories, and separated from the industrialization of the world, those still holding strong because of those stories and because of that understanding. So productivity is not, and industrialization is not, I think, key defining factors of civilization, or what it means to be civilized. But that's not just me, really, I promise. The world thinks everything is transactional, but I challenge that as a colonial idea. As a colonial idea of connection, of love, of however you want to define it, where connection can actually be more truthfully defined as reciprocity, like partnered dance, or like relationships in stars. There are 7 relationships in stars, actually. uh, in case you wanted to know that random fact. Um, there could be more now, for all I know. Um, but with that being said, I think in a very formulaic way, transaction separated from entitlement and expectation becomes reciprocity. So having faith in the reciprocity aspect of it, having belief, having a sort of positive charge toward that outcome, um, will pull that equation and those factors from the original variable of transaction. Even though giving and taking in any relationship can seem like that, believe in the reciprocity, devoid of entitlement and expectation on either side, and you'll be surprised what that can alchemize in those scenarios. But that's just me giving you my 10 cents on colonization. Um, because perhaps in a world that thinks everything is colonization, or that thinks everything is transaction, funny slip there. Perhaps in a world that thinks everything is transaction, nothing ought to be. And maybe that is the big break from what it was like with Pluto in Capricorn. One of the many big breaks, truly. That kind of obliterates what we believed, or what we've been raised to believe. But how many times have we truly been surprised by things that we've learned too late in life, whether it be about our own bodies or sex education or historical facts. That's something that kind of surprise happens quite often now, doesn't it? So it's funny how we define these key terms. Let's see, what else? There's still a lot to be said about Black Moon, Lilith, and Virgo, and Palestina in Sagittarius. However, I feel like I touched on that a lot in the last one, so I'm gonna leave that to the last one. You can jump back in time, my dear. But there is an interesting triangulation of water energies that always exists, right? That is always kind of part of the fractal relationship of everything that's going on. So within this, we have this full moon in Scorpio, the opposition of pure fire, of Aries and Chiron, and all of this crazy stuff. This still pool alignment of stacked balls of shit. Pisces has Neptune, Mars, and Saturn in its own little cluster, and Cancer is devoid of any. But that does not mean that it holds significant energy. From where I am looking at it, and from my own charting, I suppose, exists within the 9th house, death house. And again, I think that is a death of preconceived exertions, of forcefulness, of proving, which is something that I think even superficial Taurus nature, Taurian nature, can kind of need more tangible proof. And so this is very challenging to that literal quality. Very challenging to reality, but I beg you to explore what that actually means, because the definition of reality is, I don't know the exact definition, but it is defined by your sensory input rather than by a congruence of acknowledgement of information. In physics, it's like the opposite too, which is really interesting. It sort of de-evolves because we place it in that way. We predict or assume in that way, and it sort of slows the frequency or places it where it may not have been. I think understanding this can satiate all of the energies that Aries is brewing, because it is boiling over in Chiron and chaos. And I think those are wounds that are asking for new bandages, and wounds that are asking to be treated or seen. Which also goes to explain a lot of the energies in the world. There's a lot of spirits on this ground that are big and quite loud to be seen or heard, and that's also where we see a lot of violence. Chaos brews where the wound stays split. So do we stay mad in a sick environment, and open to that which is not us, which is, I think, where a lot of psychotic breaks or splits, or trauma-induced psychoses or possession happens. From everything to bar fights to car crashes to suicides to school shooters. I don't know what I can actually say on this. I hope not. We'll see. And so, do we stay mad in a sick environment, or do we not seek? Because that is also the false binary, is to seek something better, which is why people find themselves so desperate for God. Religions capitalize on this 100%. That is, they bite at your throat for moments like these. So rather than seek, create gardens of healing. Whether that be in your own reality or very literally, I don't know, planting some seeds, or cultivating a community that you've always dreamt of, whether that be tea with friends or a meditation circle or what have you. Or, I don't know, a homie's going to run on the 606, whatever. But ultimately, is the choice of which slit will a particle go through. But the choice to sort of shift beyond this red pill, blue pill, extreme binary rhetoric, because it is not, it needs the sick society to stay relevant as well. And when you are in a void of cognitive dissonance, you can kind of play with the depth of it as much as you want to. When you are in a simulation of inverted key terms, you can code and develop code based on new key terms, based on developing new key terms based on the information that you already know, because you can sort of interweave into the simulation as it is, which I think is actually maybe what people mean when they say breaking the system from the inside out. You kind of have to hack in order to to virus or what have you, or to poison, which is incredibly pertinent in both literal quality and non-literal, ethereal, spiritual quality, because there is new research that shows your DNA sequence is a fractal information receiver, is an EMF receiver, which is funny because for people that thought EMF radiation was a hoax, no, there's very much research to track health crises in the same times of heightened and unimposed technological growth, imposing to us but not imposed upon, or regulated. That's the word I'm looking for. But they understand it as imposition. Oh yeah, so also that, the cognitive dissonance of the coding, like I had to do my own full moon thing and kiss you in the morning because antennas are up, dear. But so with that being said, we pull cards, we make moves, we see what's up, and thanks for hanging out with me. And Bone Daddy over here, he's not wearing a tinfoil hat, he's wearing a disco ball, but I think that may be even one better. Interesting. Ah, yes. Of course. Um, Eight of Pentacles, Queen of Pentacles, Four of Cups, Seven of Cups. The Queen of Pentacles, we'll start there. The Queen of Pentacles is very much elusive to this garden I was speaking of choosing. However, it is in her being, up her sleeves, creation within the void, and surrounded in abundance. This also makes me think of that movie, A Little Princess, like old Disney movie a long time ago. I'm pretty sure it was Disney. But where this orphan girl and this other orphan girl imagine these like incredible, uh, luscious banquets that they have like trapped in an attic by some orphanage abuser woman. Um, and the way she not even escaped. It wasn't about escapism. It was very much about like nourishing the present with this incredible imagination that she has. And I think too often do we use tools for this to escape and purely as entertainment. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes meditation is also just fun. It's also just a thing. But there's very much an elitism in that as well, about people, and what specific mode, or how deep they go or what have you, or why they can't get that deep. I hear that a lot with DMT and people that can't like blast off or whatever, when in reality it's just because you're not, it's that cognitive dissonance that keeps you tethered, and you don't believe in it naturally, so of course your psyche is not going to take you there. There's a giving in moment, and it's a moment of trust. I've had this, and I think it's something that's very much alluded to in many contexts. One of my favorite is in Aladdin, when he takes her on the magic carpet ride and shows her a whole new world. He reaches out and he asks, "Do you trust me?" And this is again that cognitive dissonance. Do you trust yourself? Because that can be really scary when you don't. And it can be the kind of fear that makes the escape, or that makes it an escape, or makes you escape from the escape, or makes you question the escape. And as far as plant medicines, the spirits are already pissed off, and how much we abuse that. The plant spirits are not happy with the way that we are using it. And that's true of sage, that's true of mushrooms, that's true of ayahuasca, that's true of DMT. I think with sage, there's research that shows that it is increasingly causing more migraines to people. And while some may say that that's because they've got bad energy, I know for a fact that that's not. But I do think that the plant spirits, I think in my own commune with them, the plant spirits are upset with Palo Santo. Palo Santo is also one of these, which if you know anything about Palo Santo, those are ancient trees. That is why it's called the bones of our ancestors. And when you cut them down too soon, or you over source them, trees and people have auras that are very similar. And so it is absolutely a spirit that feels slighted. And so I think because they feel slighted, they're more inclined to give us headaches and do the opposite of what it is that we're not even asking them to do, just expecting. Again, creating a transactional relationship where we could have had reciprocity, because we're not acknowledging the natural energetic energies and their own input into our practices. This is a two-way path. There is nothing that is only one way. This is just non-duality. Duality is thinking that you have control over that. Non-duality is knowing that you don't. Knowing that nature takes control and will always have its input and its output, its growth and its decay. We cannot fight that. We embrace it, we move through it, but we cannot fight that. You also cannot fight growth. You cannot fight growth. And with growth also comes patience. And I think when we are impatient is when we begin to fight growth and sort of smash it down. Eight of Pentacles very much being that. All of these energies are very much internal. So if you are Earth in this Taurus season, in what ways are we stamping the ground? Are we draining it of its nutrients or polluting it with nutrients? You know, like for diet culture and what it is, you know, pumping all of these things, or you know, desperately seeking escapism through many retreats or what have you, poisoning the earth, giving it synthetic, coating our natural garden in synthetic quality, which those plant spirits will be really mad too, because you're coating their leaves and it can't breathe. The Queen of Pentacles is also very much that full, deep lungs, full, deep, vast water, full lungs, full heart, full breaths, and full capacity. Clear capacity. And I think when we are rushed or expectant or impatient, we breathe a lot from our chest, we breathe not all the way through or into our bellies and using our diaphragms and all lobes of the lung and what have you. I didn't even know I had four until I went to a museum that explained that to me. But most people also just think you have two lungs when in fact they each have four lobes. So there's eight maybe. That's interesting, actually. The Queen of Pentacles offering is also, though it is a pentacle and it is this like bouquet of flowers, right? But they're yellow, so it's solar plexus chakra, it's confidence, it's also not confidence putrefied. It's a very faint yellow. It's not ego, it's will. It's strong will. And that has a natural patience because it trusts itself. Ego does not trust itself, so its will becomes forceful rather than patient. And I think that is very much information that does not necessarily fully, does not come out right away. Does not come out of the throat chakra right away. It sort of siphons back, it sort of rotates back down, churns itself out, and then comes. So this is, again, patience with the self. A lot of times the first inclination or the first reaction is a reflex, especially if it's a trigger. It's a reflex to something that needs to be paid attention to, but it is not necessarily something that needs to be acted on. And that's really difficult for people. Not everybody, most people apparently don't have a filter, or don't actually think about the things that they say. But I think that also maybe is because they're not having conversations with themselves within their mind, in which case maybe acting that out in some way, shape, or form is more how they relay that information to their brain and their body, or maybe something that we can all try to do a little more. I know I have. It's been a fun exercise of, I don't know, replicating the sounds in my head and around me. Four of Cups finishes off this like trio, right? And like I said, Chaos Brewing, Aries, Chiron, all that jazz. The Four of Cups is very much this glorious waterfall. It's a lot of intense emotionality. However, I do not think that that is necessarily a bad thing. I think when it is dammed up, then that pressure will break it. However, when it is not, it becomes a very steady, serene, healing moment, and sort of a ethereal wall in its own. Not a wall, more like a mirror. More like a mirror. In which case it's treated with fragility. It's treated, gently and held, and it's treated as a passage or way, even. Like most mirrors will exist in some sort of passageway realm. Even in public bathrooms, there's kind of a separate aisle with mirrors, or in doorways, or what is it, foyers. It's given its own moment, it's given its understanding, and it's treated with gentility. That is very much how we can approach ourselves with our own emotions when they feel this intense specifically as well. And with everything that's roaming about in the ether and in our energy and with our bodies, I think this is a premonition of how much energy we can have if we flow with it, and how much that can drive us dangerously if it is not. Don't dam up this area, whatever area these emotions, any emotions in the next few weeks arise. There's a fine line between acting out and speaking too soon, and giving into these angry impulses, and taking a step back and understanding that energy can be utilized in a much more efficient way, rather than demonizing that energy, and being irresponsible with it. God, there was something else that made me think of, actually, and now I can't remember. Okay. I'm also thinking in terms of this wasn't what I was thinking originally, but in the terms of reciprocity and transactionality in relationships, this is also very much an offering, but a delicate offering. Like, out of the whole keg of the human that is you, full of energy, you can serve a tiny spout and offer information to a new partner, a new idea, whatever. But the way that you do that is by understanding this and sort of slowing down that stream. And again, well, like I said, that confidence energy siphoned, rather than being a fearful ego, and the patience that this Eight of Pentacles often brings, so that you're not dumping on your homies or on a new relationship or whatever it is. If that's what you're looking for now, good luck. But so that you're not overwhelmed, so that you're not dumping, so that you don't feel like a burden to yourself or to others around you. To be aware and understanding of your emotions and the space that they need to take up, and allowing that, rather than sort of damming it off, will also allow you to be able to section off and be like, hey, this is me. This is me, but like here's a glimpse, take a look in the water. Take a look in a drop. It's the whole world in there, dear. I'm gonna think of that other thing, and it's gonna be, I don't know, in the notes maybe. The Seven of Cups is also here at bottom of the deck. And the Seven of Cups is very much asking you to pay attention. Who's giving you what? Who's offering you what? And what does that feel like? I feel like people often offer us a lot of things. Like if you have this plate and people are like, try this, try this, try this, try this, and then all of a sudden your plate's full and you're overwhelmed and you're like, I'm not even this hungry. Now I'm just anxious. Because these were all offerings that were not in alignment with what you initially wanted. These were all things that people thought they knew best about, things that people offered to you thinking that they know. And that's not to say that that's a terrible thing to do. Some people offer because they want to show you and share something beautiful, but some people also really need validation in what it is they like. Either way, take what you need and leave what you don't. Take what feels right and leave what does not. Take what you fancy and leave what you do not. Get very comfortable saying no to the things that don't need to be on your plate. I know it's a very hard thing to do. It's a thing that strikes a lot of fear. However, we do have to be more aware of our own enthusiastic yeses, and the reasons with which we hesitate to say no. And every situation is different, but I think it shows you a lot about the way people react to that too, and the way people react to needing an explanation or not. And that is their world, not yours. We cannot be responsible for other people's perceptions. Even with misgendering, it says so much more about you than it does me. It tells me what you need in your life. It tells me how you see the world. It says nothing about how I see the world. So you can call me fucking cock-a-doodle-doo if you want to. It says everything about how you see the world. It says nothing about me. The Seven of Cups also has another figure with it, that is offering in its own way, sort of presenting. And so I think that's often when we take because it's there, knowing that we want something else all the while, or knowing that it's not quite fulfilling. It's kind of like settling, whether that be in relationships or with jobs or just with within friend groups, settling for not the kind of mindset you want to be around, or settling for fucking Wish version of the shit that you want, settling for the Temu version of whatever the fuck it is that you want to see in yourself, and want to see yourself become. But yeah, it's kind of exactly that meme. Well, somebody else is like, but you can have this all the while. You can have everything. You could if you just believed in yourself enough to not let anyone take you outside of that or lock you outside of that. And oh, trust me, everybody will try. Not everybody, but lots of people will try. It actually reminds me of a relationship, the situationship thing where I literally locked myself out, and it dawned on me, like, oh, this whole situation has been locking me out of my own sense of self, my own trust in myself. Like, there's a lot of gaslighting. There's a lot of shit going on then. And it was clear as day. And I was just like, oh, shit, yeah, you're right. I don't have to go down that rabbit hole again. And sort of left what needed to be left, and understood the offerings that were always waiting for me. and what I initially thought around those initial offerings anyway, why it attracted me to begin with, and what kind of person that was, I suppose. A lot of interesting investigating. Found the crack in the code, and you know what? Recoded, systems back up, party on. Alrighty, we pull delicious numbers because time. Because time. All right. Okay. Okay, so before I say anything, these fell in an interesting cross. The others could very well be aligned in what looks like that. Oh gosh, let me be careful with that. What looks like the Shiva staff, that like triketa. Because of that, this is beyond what we understand as left and right energies, or like masculine and feminine energies. A lot of a culture shows this as a specific diagram where your left side is your feminine and your right side is your masculine, and that is true. But there is constant crossover in energies, which is again where those turning points are, in meridians, in you know, some modalities, in other titles and other modalities. But what this whittles down to is beyond when that is crossed efficiently, then you no longer are operating from just masculine and feminine energy. You utilize the two, and the best of both worlds in their own right, I suppose. So the masculine energy then on this side of the triketa kind of deal would be understanding of energy, which is all the better to utilize with. All the better to utilize you with, my dear. And the feminine proper energy would be actionable but patient in their action, which is very interesting. And all of that energy moves forward, and from what numbers pull, moves forward in a very growing way. Three of Wands is the perfect frame for a fire. Is the perfect frame for a fire that would keep you warm, would light the night, would serve as a lighthouse, etc., etc. But light, but sparks to light, beginning of a fire. All good things, creation, right? And the threes being a powerful, magical number, a realm of a lot of energetic action. Even just with these three, if you want to whittle it down to like points of an atom, there's still enough energy to be able to spin, and you know, create its own placement and turbulence and energetic body through that. Let's see. Six of clubs, jack of clubs, five of diamonds, eight of clubs. A lot of fire energy. We are going to be given a lot of this fire chaos energy. It is a matter of how you're going to use it. It is a matter of how you're going to responsibly use it. Which is also exactly why I fucking took a little bit to figure my own shit out. And then tap into all of this chaos and this cognitive dissonance, because I was very aware of how it would make my body feel. We're going to be given all of this fire and heat and chaos and dissonance, and it's a matter of how we choose to align that. Will you choose to find the correct tunage? Find the tunage that makes this a tonality that you can sit in, rather than a madness that you cannot. Again, where we choose, do we stay mad in a sick world, or do we create gardens of healing? And create, not seek. Do not seek in this time, because that is when religions will gut you. Gut you for your soul. With all of that, fire energy, six of clubs very much talks about balance. I think that came up in the last reading too, which you gotta go back to for anyway, for Black Lilith and Virgo and Palestina and Sagittarius. But is a balancing act, is a stabilization, is understanding the microcosm of the macrocosm, because this is balance on minimal limbs. But understanding the framework. So this is a stable root and a stable core in a world that is, again, turbulent and chaotic and kind of like thrusting you either way, within its own simulated binary bullshit. The Jack of Clubs here, inverted, is not saying it ain't time to play, but I do think it means it is time to get serious. However, not serious as in sacrificing play, more like mindful and intentional whilst playing. More like aware of your surroundings. Not so caught up in play that you forget to look both ways before you cross the road. Which is a very naive child mindset, and again, that's not a bad thing. That is just naive, because we have not been in the world long. You can hold on to that childlike mindset and still play, explore, and create and flow, whilst also understanding your positionality and your present moment. This is perhaps the big difference between escapism and finding presence. Finding embodiment and finding presence in a time that wants you to be very not cognitively aware and very dissonant in your own right, and escaping in any chance you get. Staying present, staying aware, versus trying to escape in play. Because you can have play in both situations. One is just more mindful of the other. One is just very embodied in its play experience. Five of diamonds. Okay, we're gonna get to that in a second, because fire. Eight of clubs is also fire, which is a really fun card. It's just this little dude playing video games. But exactly what I said earlier about once you understand the simulation has inverted key terms, then you can take those key terms and redefine them based on what it is, and break the simulation from the inside out. Break the coding from the inside out, and even in a very just internal emotional way, that's understanding the coding of your memory and of what its projectionality creates. Because if your memory has its own will that supersedes your own, again, cognitive dissonance, then you end up creating the same cycles. But if your memory and your will is present, is present and embodied despite the memory, then your will of creativity can create beyond the frequency of your memory. I hope that makes sense. I'm getting very visual with my hands here. But fives are very much creative numbers. It's the center point. It's where the roots of Tree of Life or Tree of Death meet. It's the meeting places at, Heaven's Gate or Hell's Gate or what have you. Not so much purgatory as much as it is a void of creation, or the upside down maybe is a really good visual for people. The upside down being kind of just this like black room. If you've ever seen the show, I suppose. Not that I've seen it in a while. But all of this eight of clubs character taking all of these tools, utilizing them to the best of his intelligence. Think like video games. It is absolutely something that requires both hand-eye coordination and your visual eye coordination, your problem-solving skills, and what have you. Utilize all of these tools to, with positive intention, to break the simulation code before we step outside of the void, before we step out of this strange little void time that we're in into either extreme of binary, so that we can stay sort of above or outside of the chaos, so that we can be in the world but not of it, and so we cannot succumb to cognitive dissonance or find ourselves lost in another simulation. The Five of Diamonds is also very, very much moving into the future. So as much as you may or may not feel stagnant in this void, if your imagination is growing and your heart is, then time and space are surely growing with you. So rest assured, dear. But I will leave it there. There's quite a few gems in there, specifically in the first probably like half hour. But yeah, I'll leave you with that. Party on, churn away, siphon with this, cuddle with this, take this, boof it in proper Scorpio fashion. And I will see you next time. Party on.